Hello everybody. It's been a while since I made my last video because as you can see from the title of this video, I've been dealing with a lot. And it took me a while to figure out, just how I felt about it and how I wanted to talk about it because, I made this channel to share my journey, but also be encouraging to others who might be walking through the same thing. And so I didn't want to just get on here and make a video saying like, this sucks, because that's how I felt at first about things. I still feel that way, but anyways, let me just start by explaining. So when everything happened in December, as I mentioned in my last video where I kind of went into more details of what all my procedures were, they did an angiogram. An angiogram is basically like a scan of your brain, but it's like done through a surgical procedure. So it's like an internal scan of your brain, if you will. So they have to go through a femoral artery. For me, they can go in through your arm, your leg, your hip, wherever. For me, they went over by my hip. So they went through a femoral artery all the way up to my brain and took all these internal scans showing just all of my arteries and veins and everything. It's actually pretty neat. And when they did, because that's what they did in December to figure out what was the problem with my eye, and they found that, but they also found 2 aneurysms in my brain. And so in my last video, I mentioned that I was going to have a surgery in June. That's already happened. It's September now. So I had that surgery, and what that was it was another angiogram to just check on, first of all, how things healed behind my eye. And then it also was just to check on those 2 aneurysms again to see if there was any growth within that 6-month period. There wasn't, so that's good. But yes, there are 2 aneurysms in my brain that need to be dealt with. So here's the thing. Aneurysms are like a bomb, for lack of better words. So you can't just take it out, because that's exactly what happened in December. They removed a mass that was not supposed to be removed, and all this bleeding and emergency stuff happened, and that's how I became blind. So, but aneurysms are even trickier because they are in my brain. And so it's a lot more risky than just, losing vision. There's a risk of stroke, which could come with brain damage or paralyzation or death. So it's a lot heavier than just my eye. So you can't just remove an aneurysm. You have to basically deactivate it. The medical term is embolize. You have to embolize the aneurysm. So first of all, let me explain what an aneurysm is. So pretend this straw is like an artery in your brain. Blood is flowing through. Well, an aneurysm is basically like a growth on the artery. And as blood flows to that aneurysm, it can get bigger and then eventually burst, and that's when all the bad things can happen. Well, I have 2 aneurysms that are actually sitting like right next to each other, which is actually good in this case, because what they are going to do is they're going to put this basically metal coiled up tube. It's basically like a stent, where they're going to put that in my artery to block blood flow to those bumps. So blood is only going through the artery to the rest of my brain as it should be. And those aneurysms will no longer grow. So they'll still be there, but they'll no longer be dangerous because they aren't growing from blood flow. So that's what's happening in October. October 5th is my surgery date. And I'm not gonna lie, I've been pretty scared because we had a big scary meeting in July, mid-July, where they sat down, my husband and I, and they just talked about all the risks involved and the fact that I'm gonna have to be on blood thinners for 6 months after the surgery and the risks involved with that as well. So I felt pretty discouraged for a while because that doctor appointment really felt like deja vu of everything that happened to me last year. Because last year, they had a plan for how to remove the tumor in my head, and they, were talking through the risks, but, every risk that they would talk about, they were like, but it's a very low chance. And one of those risks was my eye going blind, and that happened. And so I was just really getting in my head all about like, oh man, well, what if one of these risks happens again? You know, one of the risks happened last time, so what's to say it's not going to happen again? Just all these kinds of things, and just scared mostly of what could happen after the surgery than the actual surgery, if that makes sense, just because, you know, last year everything fell apart after the surgery. So that's just where my mentality was all summer, pretty much, just fear. But I've really been praying through it. Honestly, a lot of people have told me that with everything that happened to my eye, you know, you're so positive and everything, but really I would be nowhere without my faith in Christ. It is His truth that I cling to. And I also, God has been sending me all kinds of encouraging friends who have given me very specific words that speak straight to my heart. And I like to think of problems as waves. I really love the analogy of waves. In fact, this quote behind me, it says, "The one the wind and waves obey is strong enough to save you," which is actually a quote from one of my favorite 10th Avenue North songs, but it's so true. You know, there is no problem bigger than our God. There's no problem that He can't handle. And I recently read a quote by Charles Spurgeon that it just speaks to my heart so much. And it says, "I have learned to kiss the wave that slams me into the rock of ages." And that's just such a beautiful picture, because just imagine if you really were up against some rocks, nowhere else to go, and you see this large, intimidating wave coming at you. If you're smart, you're going to cling to those rocks with all you've got so you're not swept away by the wave. And that's exactly what I'm doing. I'm clinging to God's truth. I'm clinging to the rocks and the foundation of His truth and what He speaks over me. And He speaks over me that He is my healer, that He is my protector, that He has good plans for my life, that He has a hope and a future for my life, that I shall live and not die. He speaks so many encouraging words that just fill me up with faith and trust in Him. And those are the rocks that I cling to. Those are the rocks that I will be slammed into by any wave. I'm going to be slammed into Jesus. So that's my mentality now. I'm still terrified, but I'm trusting God. And another encouraging thing that a friend of mine, Natalie Parks, told me when we were talking on the phone, you know, a couple weeks ago, she was telling me, you know, I consider it, she told me that she considers it an honor to watch my story unfold, to just, you know, watch all the things that God is going to do in me. And I just really took that to heart as like, you know, our life is just a giant story. And this is just a hard chapter of my story, but it's not the end of my story. And this is a chapter that, even though it's hard, this is a chapter where I am learning to trust God like never before in my life. And so I'm just clinging to His truth, what He says about me, that He is my healer. So yeah, that's what I'm walking through, and that's what I'm up against. So just wanted to share that with you guys. I appreciate any prayers. But yeah, I will be documenting everything that I can, my whole journey. So yeah, I'll keep you guys updated. So make sure you're subscribed to my channel, and please follow me on my Instagram, because that is where I post a lot more content and give more updates. So make sure you're following me in all the places, and I'll see you next time.